welcome to another episode of Spotlight on CS Ops. I'm here with my co-partner, Matthew Lin. Hi, Matthew.
Hello, Sean. Great to see you once again.
Likewise. And today we have the pleasure of meeting with Kate Griffin. Kate is someone who, well, as you can see in the background, currently works at nCloud, leading their services and implementation or customer success platform implementations. But she previously also worked at Anthology and Campus Labs. And so, yeah, pleasure to have you here. Wonderful to have a chat with you here today, Kate.
Thanks for having me. I wish I would have known to wear the bow tie, or maybe Jean, you and I should have worn the matching bow ties. You have
Well,
to let us know next time, Matthew.
Matthew's always setting the tone. Like he's always got the bow tie. He's representing SaaS. Um, I have a couple bow ties, but I don't have the menagerie of bow ties that Matthew has. He seems to have a different one almost in every episode. So
I love that.
I'm
It's
I'm
great.
torn on if I want it to trend, like other people will follow, or if I want it to stay sort of brandy for just me. I mean, I don't know. We could play it either way and see what happens.
Yeah,
one day
you
at
could
Pulse, like we'll set it up so that like everyone shows up in bow ties.
you could do a twin day. Yeah, twinning with Matthew. Yeah.
That would be my best day ever. I mean,
Let's be
amazing.
Matthew. I love that.
We don't need that. We don't need any more than one Matthew. Not because I've got a lock on it. We just don't need any more of me. But yeah, more bow ties. I
We
would
can dress
get
like
in
you.
that boat easily, easily.
I love it.
Kate, tell us about yourself. Okay, it just sounded like you're interviewing for a job, so I apologize. But tell us like what your day is like. What you're a vice president of delivery services. I could
Yeah.
attach a bunch of things to that. So rather than me assuming, why don't you tell us um, what you do at nCloud each day?
Yeah. I get the opportunity to work with many different customers, which is exactly why I joined nCloud. It's been almost 4 years now. So we're a management consulting firm, and we have a couple different technology partnerships, a couple different verticals. One of them is customer success, and that's my background. And the opportunity to open up, I actually got recruited for the position, and I was like, I've never heard of this company before, and opened the door. And wow, what an amazing opportunity it has been. And I think one of the things that I love just in general with work is meeting new people, uh, encountering new challenges, and like helping people. And that's the basics of what we do. I have a team of consultants that works directly with different customers who are either they're searching for a customer success platform, so like they're in the sales process and evaluating solutions, or they've purchased a customer success solution and they've hired us to help them implement it. Or it could be they're struggling with adoption of their customer success platform. So they'll hire us to come in and do some blueprinting of their CS strategy and try to do the alignment of like technology to goals. And it can be anything between from really high level, let's create a customer lifecycle journey, to let's help you build things within the solution. So we go very high, we go very like deep into the product. But the consultants that I have on my team work with customers on a daily basis, and it's a lot of variety because we're in a ton of different instances, a ton of different meetings. So what I love about it is you like get this bird's eye view of like all of the things that are happening at this level. And you hear a customer say, I'm struggling with this. And it's like, you're not alone. This is a common problem. So let's figure out a solution for it. So in general, that's what we're doing, right? We're consulting with customers, whether it be tech specific or strategy specific.
I love it because I had the experience as well, and you kind of, I always say like you get this PhD almost in CS or ops or whatever whatever the domain you want to call it, but like it's a PhD because you get so many at bats, you get so much exposure. Like, I imagine like, based on your previous experience, like working for one company and maybe doing, just one implementation or working in one instance, like I imagine with that breadth of exposure, like you're probably feeling that same thing, that it's just like you're getting to see, and you mentioned a bird's eye view, but you're getting to see like the entire breadth of the world and how they use CSPs essentially.
Yeah, all different industries across the world. We work with European customers, we work with customers in the States, work with different CSPs. I mean, if I look at my day today, I literally have gone back and forth between meetings of like, one customer uses this, one customer uses this, one, right? And so I also think that makes us dynamic in that we have expertise to be able to share either in like guiding a customer of what's going to work for you and how are you going to do this and what are you trying to achieve, and then insert technology solution processes to align with that.
That's
Okay,
awesome.
how do you go ahead, John? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, like, do you often recommend that path for people, like just to get that exposure or get that like that ability to learn so much in the space?
This is such a good question. I think it has been great. I have learned so much and I really love it. I will say I think it has a specific style or work style to align to this type of role. I am very much a maverick. Like I love to tell me other things that aren't working. Let's plan, and I love to do that with a variety of types and things. Like so keep a lot of variety of my in my day-to-day and my week. But I do think that it also can be stressful for somebody because you're juggling six to sometimes 10 different customers of different instances, different goals, different verticals. And I think at times like that can be overwhelming and almost a little demanding. Whereas you think of just one CS ops role, one instance, global company, there's a lot to learn there, right? And a lot of exposure that you would get for that type of like breadth of company or size of company. So I think it's, the right alignment with any job, right? Right fit, right skill set. But I do think you have to be pretty, one, have a technical tenacity. Like if I was hiring today, right, I look for somebody who has technical tenacity. It doesn't matter what the solution is. CRM, CSP, service, system, whatever it may be, you have to understand the guts of those systems. But you also have to be relational and strategic to understand and really dig into, why are we doing this? And how are we going to prove that it's working? And then it's the how are we going to do this? Where I think there are you know, sometimes like people, especially I think in ops, like you tend to go like, well, what's the solution? All right, I'll just configure in this way. But, we're not just order takers. Like that's not why we're here trying to consult and bring value to the customer. So I think it's, the right skill set, the right fit for the right role. But, I've really enjoyed it.
It's amazing. I relate to this because I had this conversation today with someone who came to me and said, "Oh, can I build blah 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 report?" And I was like, "Tell me more. What are you up to? What are you thinking? What question are we answering?" And literally, the person replies with, "Well, my manager told me I had to build it." Okay, let's go think a little more. Like, tell me what you're after,
Yeah.
and the answer was yes, we can build that report. But I was not quite willing to part with that knowledge yet because I thought, well, I don't want to be the order taker, or maybe there's a different way to do this, or maybe I am not even interpreting their assumptions well. So I'd like to hear more from them.
Yeah. It's almost back to the why. When you look at that, if I look at customers that I work with directly or that I like day-to-day conversations and think about CS ops strategy, not just I'm an admin for a tool, right? So we're thinking big picture, how are we using technology? How are we improving processes across the CS organization to achieve our goals? I think you have to balance this, and I think that's what customers I see them struggle with the most because they're so bombarded by all of those requests, Matthew, that you just said. Like, I need a report, I need my call to action triggered, and it shouldn't. It's like break fix, and they can't get out of that, right? Of this like world of just getting piled on with requests, which is kind of the world we live in. You put a request out and you want instant gratification that you've got an answer. And if we just, I think if some people took like approach of let's pause for a moment but also let's think strategically of like how are we using our time to achieve the things we need to achieve while still carving out time to work with those requests, understand them, do a training and enablement, whether it may be. But I think it's a big struggle within CS operations that, uh, I think it's a little bit of just the world we live in, like this instant gratification. So it's like, how much quicker can we run and how much more can I do? And that really is detrimental to being like outcomes and forward thinking in your strategy.
Mhm. Any pro tips that you'd have, like, or maybe Maverick tips, since you called yourself a Maverick, which I love because I'm a big fan of Top Gun. The any Maverick tips that you have on how to navigate that conversation or how to get like to the why from
Yeah.
a strategic kind of perspective?
Yes. So my background is actually in higher education. So that's,
Okay.
I have a master's degree in college student personnel administration, was student advisor, faculty, all that was my background. Fell into tech via ed tech company, Campus Labs. And that's really where my, kind of grew up in CS and learned CS and all of that stuff. Um, in higher education, one area that we helped institutions with was strategic planning. And there's this model, it's called Plan, Do, Study, Act. And this concept of, what are you going to do, plan for it, and then do the thing, right? If you were going to do an assessment strategy, do the thing, then collect the results, check it, and then act and make changes on it. And I really love that like framework for CS operations and just applying it to everything that we do. Not everything, but I think especially new initiatives and bigger picture. We've got a huge priority. We're have a new product release. We're doing a big migration. We have to improve some aspect of our customer experience or customer journey. Those initiatives, I think you really have to take the time to stop and then put a process into place to think about, how are we going to roll this out? What is it going to look like? How are we going to know that it's working? What are we going to look at to say, this is working, this isn't working, this is the impact it's having, and then like cycle through it. So I always like bringing that model up with customers in our work, especially when we're talking about new things that they may be thinking about, of taking the time to say, well, let's think about why we're doing this. What impact will it have across the organization? And then going through that model of continuous improvement is really helpful. A few customers that I've done it with that have actually, gone all the way through and taken the time to do it, are like, wow, this was so impactful. And they had like direct results, right? And we're all
Mhm.
looking for results, like data driven results to say, here's the impact this had. It's because you took the time to do it. So if my biggest maverick advice, we're going to call it that, is like just slow down. Take the time. Nothing's really on fire. You can take the, couple hours it's going to be to really plan out something like that.
Let me present a scenario I actually, or a conversation I had, which I would also love your input on, where someone had said, "Well, I just bought a very expensive piece of software. In this case, it was customer success platform, and I need to start using it. I got to show activity in there because we bought it, and now I have to look busy in there, or else they might take my budget away, or I might get caught flat-footed for why I'm not busier inside the CSP. So
Yeah.
give me your best response to that, because I was sort of taken aback a little bit, and I'm
Yeah.
just curious, based on what you said, input on that one.
Yeah. Goodness.
Maverick
I wish
advice.
I I've sadly heard that a lot. Like you've
Yeah,
invested in this
sadly.
tool, but you really don't have a strategy for it. And anyone who is in like the purchasing stage of a solution, you could buy the fanciest piece of technology, the most expensive piece of technology. If you don't have a plan or a strategy around it, it's not going to be successful. And for customers that come to us for help of we're struggling with adoption, we have zero adoption, it's typically because they don't have plans and processes or accountability in place for our CS team is focused on what? What's your CS charter? Let's work backwards from there of things you could be doing within the solution to bring value or show your value within a customer success solution. So anytime a customer has come to us and said similar, words or a description like that, I always go back to what's your charter? Tell us what you're about. What are you focused on? Because that is literally what you should be, your input should be all about those things. They should make the cogs churn, right?
And if the answer is, what's a CS charter? Well, then you have a place
Well,
to
let's
start,
break that down.
right?
I
More
love the
times.
I love the conversation though, because I unfortunately have run into that conversation a few times too. But like, if carpenters thought that way, they would be walking around just banging on things with their hammers, just be like, oh, I need to get more ROI out of this hammer. So I'm just gonna go like, I don't know, hit some things.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
we've got to get out of we've got to get out of that that trend of just like, just use the tool more and that will give value because you kind of got to step out. I think what you're describing a little bit is like you got to step out and figure out, okay, what am I going to build with this thing? And just virtue of like logging in is not getting value, but it's like,
Yeah.
how much adoption can we drive? How much expansion or like workflows that lead to expansion that we can drive? And so, yeah, I've unfortunately run into that topic a few times.
Yeah.
So thanks for bringing that one up, Matthew. I wanted to like ask another kind of, is there any and along that line, and I don't want to kind of you know, lead whatever experience you had there, Matthew. And this is not a perspective on it, but have you ever had any other bad experiences or things that you're seeing that people are like doing wrong? Like we kind of just we just talked about this one where, yeah, people are not looking at value maybe the right way. Is
Yeah.
there other trends that you see kind of in your world across all these different customers and experiences that you're like, man, some people have to change what they're doing or their approach or what might be going
Yeah.
on?
I think overcomplication of like just making it way harder or more complicated than it really needs to be. I truly believe that like even the most complex organizations that I've consulted with and the most complex of like, here's what we have and here's the requirement. And you get in these conversations, like you're 4 hours in, multiple meetings, and at the end of the day, like if you broke it down, it's not that hard. Like if you just spell it out, but sometimes we overcomplicate processes or we over operationalize stuff. So I do think in the world of CSPs that you can bring a lot of automation to scale. Amazing. Like a main goal of these solutions is to be able to do that. But I think you also can bring a lot of noise to your team and a lot of noise in front of them of what are you trying to have them focus on? For example, I think like tasks or CTAs, right? You want them to do these things, but I think one of the biggest mistakes customers do, and this is across any system, right? Because you can do the same functionality and just think like, I want the CSM to go do something. So I'm going to tell them to do it. And I'm going to give them all of the tasks that they need to do it. And they do that for everything across customer lifecycle. And then all of those tasks are overdue. So that's just one example of like you've taken something that actually should be very simple and you've over operationalized it. Do you need a 10-step playbook? Probably not. They don't need you to tell them to do that thing. They know, right? So, I think that is one thing, like just very overcomplicated processes, over automation, if that's a if that's a statement or a tagline. And then the other thing is data and data cleanliness just across systems, I think is especially in CSPs because the point is to add a lot of inputs to put in front of the team. And you can add a lot there, but you also can add a lot there. So you can have fields that should have been deprecated and you have fields that are old and you have queries that are updating fields that no longer need to be updated. So there are some times when I get under the cover of an instance and I say, what's going on here? For those customers, I'm typically saying, we need a run book. We need to literally go query by query to say, what is this doing and why, and clean it up. It's like spring cleaning, right, for your instance. But and I say that because going back, Matthew, to something that you said before of like, it's not working or adoption, maybe isn't going well. Sometimes it's because of that. Like people don't trust the data in the system. And so you've stabbed yourself in the foot. Right.
I think every CSM and every CS ops person who's listening is nodding their head along right now as they look at their long list of overdue tasks.
Overdue tasks.
They're also nodding in agreement on that one.
Yeah.
I love that
Give
we
us
used to do like 10-step processes for QBRs, like setting a meeting up, and you need like a 10-step playbook for that. Like, I'm sure they can figure out what to do for a QBR.
Yeah.
my piece of advice, and I don't know if it will qualify as Maverick advice. You can decide, Kate, since we've appointed you the guru of Maverick advice. But I'm like 3 to 5 tasks, 7 if you're really convince me. That's it. You can't do it in 3 to 5 tasks, and 7 if you're like, I don't know, you're going to space and you need enough tasks to cover going to space. Okay, I might go up to 7. Otherwise, no, 3 to 5. Tops.
I love that. That's going to be my new like Lind approach for
okay.
when
Lind
I say
advice.
customers.
Lind
advice. That's what we're going to call it. Lind advice.
Yep. Yep.
I love that.
Give us a prediction, Kate. You get to talk to a lot of companies. You get to dip in and out of a ton of stuff that's going on, as does your team. What do you see in the wind, in the water? What do you see coming for us in CS Ops?
Yeah, it's a big question, but one that I have thought a lot about over the past year, which has had such a roller coaster of a year, like so much ups and downs. And I really should say the last 2 years within tech and I think CS ops of a lot of layoffs, a lot of rifts and happening in all areas of an organization. And what is the future of CS operations? I don't think it's going away because I actually had this conversation the other day of all these announcements of platforms creating their own CSP in them or merging with other bigger, right, enterprise systems. Everybody's trying to expand this way, right, across the customer lifecycle, and they're all kind of taking their steps. It's not going to fix anything. Like the strategy still has to be there, and somebody has to help guide it, understand it. Sure, AI can help us know what to do and when to do it, but you still are going to need the human interaction to say, why are we doing this and how are we doing this? And when we quickly pivot, how are we going to pivot? So I think the strategic nature of CS operations is going to grow, or like there's going to be a bigger need for people to really think like, how can you get an organization through that? Like you've merged systems, you've merged teams together, you now have this new functionality, you now have a new goal. Like, how do we get there? And I think it's the people to sit down and take the time to say, here's what we need to do and how we're going to do it. And let's gather from across the collective and figure out a strategy and plan. I really don't think a system, I don't know, maybe a robot is going to do that one day, but I really think it's human nature, right? It's complicated, it's messy, it's not a one size fits all. So I think that will be very big because I think the merging and all of that stuff is going to continue to happen. And I think I'm really interested to see what happens in the CSP space I think they all are going to start to kind of go wider across the customer journey. I think that will be interesting for what decisions customers make as it relates to that. And what automation will look like for CS. Because I think we trigger, as I said, a lot of stuff, but is that really allowing us to be more intuitive and data driven? I think it's like the first iteration of automation. So I think the concept of automation will grow into something we probably aren't even thinking is possible today. or at least I like to hope that things will change and be more innovative than it is today.
I like that. It really kind of looks at like, today we're sort of like, I feel like we've been so focused on like over spamming people and just like attack, 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 attack. Hopefully it drives something.
Yeah.
Getting to that like smarter automation, smarter communications, like, most likely more digital, but like hopefully better and not just like this constant attack or sort of
Yeah.
constantly beating down on the customer. So I really like that. And we were chatting to someone earlier about like, customer experience is going to have to like start kind of winning in a way a little bit more. Like it can't just be about like driving more operations or doing more. Like customers are getting more and more uh, exposed to just like commodity products. There's tools that do all the things now that are, all sort of similar and a bit
Yeah.
of feature war. But yeah, it'll be nice to kind of, for CX to take more of the charge, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah. One of the areas that I think customers struggle with the most across like their customer success strategy is, and this won't be a surprise to you all, but it's showcasing like the value. Did the customer set out to achieve something with your product or service? Are they achieving that? And it's still a struggle today, even though all the conference presentations, all the frameworks that are out there, uh, it's still not there, right? We're not there yet. And I think an organization who can, if you focus everything on that, like put all your eggs in that basket and you figured out in the customer experience how to know what they were trying to achieve. You were following that. When they get off track, you were helping them. I think that's the customer or the technology or solution, whatever it is that's gonna win. Because that's I think it's hard today. It's a process that you have to have people adopt. It's not, anything that's scalable. I shouldn't say that. I think there's probably ways and aspects you can scale it, but it is still a very, I think, a hands-on to truly get an understanding of true value.
Mhm. I fully believe exactly what you just described. We got to get to value at the end of the
You
day.
both were very silent when I,
It
I
was
said that.
We were stunned into awe.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure just like getting to know you a bit more. Like I've seen your name all over the place just because we're in the CS op space and we've met before, but yeah, it didn't really get much chance prior to like get to know more about who you are and sort of what you're up to these days. So it's good to connect for sure. Thanks for joining
Yeah.
us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun. I'll come
Thanks.
back
Great.
anytime.
Great to talk to you.
Bye.